Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is over my shoulder, or she should be. She'll be coming into shot shortly. I hope you're all doing the things that keep you happy and healthy with those that you love. Guys, please do me a favour. Hit the like button for me on the video. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. Drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. And it's been a while since I've done a Tottenham update. I do apologise. Been under the weather yet again. Can't shake this ill health nonsense. But there's so much to talk about. I haven't spoken to you since Destiny Udogie's operation. I haven't done any sort of North London derby previews yet. We'll save that for tomorrow. But you know what? Just on that kind of note real quick, do you ever get that feeling when you just, I don't know how much attention you guys pay to comment sections or Twitter, but the divisiveness within the Tottenham fan base is ever present. It's an evergreen thing because I think Tottenham as a football club are a club where kind of any opinion is sort of valid, because there's the people that are glass half full, that are optimistic, that look at, you know, the fact that they've chosen Tottenham as a club to support, and in the bigger picture of things, you know, we're one of the best teams in Europe, one of the best teams in the Premier League, the hardest league in the world. We've got a great stadium, some fantastic players, all the good things about Tottenham, which can give people validity if they want to be optimistic. Yet the reality is, you know, we don't win enough trophies, we're not successful enough when you kind of call a spade. And so people who want to be a little bit more kind of pessimistic or a little bit more focusing on that stuff, then their opinions are valid as well. And so when you have the two extremes where you have validity in your opinions coupled with passion, then you're always going to have a split fan base. And I guess that's what keeps it interesting. But right now, it feels to me that this week, because the stakes are so high with the North London derby, Tottenham still chasing a top four, and you know, Arsenal still chasing a title race, and if we can get a point, or better yet, beat them, then that's the nail in their coffin. Wonderful stuff, but yet, you know, they're playing some wonderful football, and people are concerned about our tactics and our injuries, and, you know, against an Arsenal team that play as well as it did last night, for example, then some people can perceive bad things to happen this weekend. And so you have, like, I feel like there's an edge to the naturally divisive stances of people on Twitter and in comment sections. I feel like there's a kind of, it's dialed up a little notch, because validations of opinions are at stake if, or how rather, you know, Sunday plays out. So it's an interesting week leading up to the North London derby, because so much is on the line, and I really hope that Tottenham and the manager and the players find a way to raise the stakes, raise the levels, and do what we would love to see happen. But we'll talk about that tomorrow or Friday for sure. Today I want to catch you up on some transfer news, views and clues. And the first one that's come out today, Jeff Stelling, Sky Sports fame on TalkSport now, has come out and said that, in his opinion, Ivan Toney should snub Arsenal and join Tottenham. He thinks that Tottenham makes the most sense for him, the player, and makes the most sense for the club. If we're trying to find someone who's as close to a Harry Kane replacement as we can get, then we, you know, could do a lot worse than looking at Ivan Toney. Obviously, it's difficult to judge Ivan Toney too much on his this season's stats. I think he's got five goals maybe, and an assist. But he's only been playing, you know, half a season or a quarter of a season really, since his ban for gambling has finished. Like, a wonderful player on his day, question marks about his personality, question marks about his allegiances. I think he's already twerked for Arsenal, but look, for sure, Jeff Stelling has a point when it comes to, you know, if you're looking for someone who can get as close to the numbers for Tottenham next year and in the next couple of years than as Harry Kane, plus you factor in the homegrown thing, then of course Ivan Toney would be fantastic. Let me know your thoughts. Is Ivan Toney someone that you would tolerate? Would you like to see him in a Tottenham shirt? Would you put up with the kind of, I guess, the arrogant side of his personality for his output? Would Ange Postecoglou? That'd be interesting, right? Ange always tries to promote or reassure in interviews that his priority is to find people that play ball, that are willing to die for the cause and to prioritise the team, and he places character at the very highest position on his priority list. And you know, maybe Ivan Toney doesn't tick that box. Maybe he does. Maybe it's an arrogance that is born out of a winning mentality. Maybe that's what Ange's looking for. Be interesting. But for me, I'd love to see Ivan Toney come to Tottenham. I think that of all of the likely candidates that you're linked with right now, Ivan Toney's probably up there in terms of not guaranteed output, but more than probable output every year. And obviously Tottenham do have homegrown number issues and things like that, in my opinion. I think we could need to work on that at some point this summer. And so Ivan Toney would tick both of those boxes. I'd like to see it happen, and I'd get over the fact that he has twerked for Arsenal. I'd get over the fact that he is, has questionable motives or questionable stances when it comes to his own behaviour. But anyway, that's the first story. The second story is Jed Spence to Genoa. I think there's already an £8.5 million buy option, but the story goes that Tottenham are going to try and do a player plus cash deal to get Albert Gudmundsson, the Icelandic player. I've already done a video on him a couple of months ago. Look, when I first looked at this guy, I was saying to you, in my opinion, when you look at his highlight reel, is everything real. The best bits of his game are his ability to drive at players in space. He comes deep, picks the ball up and loves to run. He's very good at it. The rest of his kind of finishing, to me, sometimes looks a little bit clumsy, but he's a very exciting player, kind of, if he's allowed to have the space and to do the things that he does for Genoa in a Tottenham shirt and a Tottenham side. And I don't necessarily think that it translates. I don't really envision, in the majority of games, him having the space to turn and run and do the things that he does. But if he can do it, if there is that opportunity to transition, to transfer, then a really talented player who, look, he's banging in the goals for Genoa this year, and he's versatile as well. He can play left, right, centre, second striker, 9. Certainly the versatility thing ticks a box for Ange. Certainly a player that I think the fans will really appreciate. But the other question mark, as I said before, is he's 26 years old and he's only really starting to emerge now. There's a number of players that this season have kind of risen up, popped their head above the parapet a little bit, and you haven't really heard too much about them before now, unless you're someone who's super dialed into certain country players or certain leagues. And for me, I don't know, him, Serhou Guirassy, there's a number of players that we've been linked with where I sit there and say, are they one-hit wonders? Is this their breakout season, or is this just the anomaly, the exception to the rule? And for me, if Tottenham are to go on and really mean business this summer, really try and take the next step to try and compete with the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, all of whom will have their own improvements or attempts to improve, then you hope that Tottenham have enough budget and enough willingness, and enough willpower, enough bite in their ambitions to improve in several areas. And is Gudmundsson a player that comes in for relatively small money? Is he the replacement for Timo Werner? Is he the guy that, if you were to sign him as part of a Jed Spence player plus cash swap deal, does that sort of put to bed the story about Timo Werner? For what it's worth, on that Timo Werner news, another story that came out a couple of days ago is that, and I don't know if there's truth to this, or if it's just an agent sort of trying to do that FOMO move on Daniel Levy, but apparently if Tottenham do not take up the option for Timo Werner to make him permanent for £15 million, then teams in Serie A have expressed an interest to take up the option instead. And so, as I say, it could just be agent talk, trying to push up and promote an idea, a narrative that will sort of shock Daniel Levy into pulling the trigger for fear of missing out. But look, it's an interesting one. The whole Timo Werner debate thing for me, again, it's one of those stories, like I was saying, every opinion at Tottenham I feel like is valid. There's a justification. It's not like you hear too many opinions that are just so wild and unreasonable. In any department, you look at players, you look at the manager's tactics, you look at the owner, you look at the club in general, and people who want to see the positive, there's a justification for it. People who want to see the frustration or the negatives, however you want to dress it up, are also valid. And so with Timo Werner, it's a really interesting one. I put a poll out on the channel on YouTube saying, what would you like to do? Would you like us to buy Timo for 15 million? Would you like us to send him home, or would you like us to try and renew the loan for one more year? And I think we had like 1,100 or 1,200 votes on the poll, and it was split 30, about kind of give or take 1% more or less here or there, but it was about 33% wanted us to sign him, 33% wanted us to let him go, and 33% wanted us to try and reloan the guy for a year. So you can see just how incredibly mixed the takes are on a variety of different options at Tottenham and a variety of different stories. For me personally, if you had to make the decision around Timo Werner or Albert Gudmundsson, not sure. I'm not convinced by Gudmundsson. He looks really cool when he's got the space to drive and do his thing, but I just don't think it translates into how Tottenham play for the majority of our games. I think the template that has been set by certain teams of how to play against Tottenham is one where you sit deep, 5-4-1 kind of formation with the ball, win the ball back, one-on-one man marking in midfield, and then hopefully you have players that have got speed and agility and dribbling skill sets at the top end of the pitch that can cause you trouble. And I don't know how many times in a season Gudmundsson's going to be able to get the ball and do what he seems to be, his ABCs, the best parts of his game. So for me, I'd like someone better. I don't really fancy Timo Werner, if I'm honest. I'd love to see us do something better. I don't really fancy Gudmundsson either. I feel like if you can go and get a Nico Williams, then that's the sort of story that makes you kind of sit upright. As does the story with Ivan Toney. I feel like if you have to park your concerns about the guy's personality and think output, right, what's in the best interest of Tottenham, then Ivan Toney for sure. He must really be one of the better options that are out there, in my opinion at least. Let me know yours. Obviously, you've still got stories linking us to players from Feyenoord. Interesting, the whole Feyenoord story right now. Arne Slot being linked to Liverpool for the next managerial role. Tottenham linked with Santiago Jimenez. I did a video yesterday, if you haven't seen it, check it out, sort of top 10 defensive midfield suggestions that I would like Tottenham to look at. As I said on the video, I could have made a 30-man list. There were so many options out there, each of them imperfect. Some of them more plausible than others or more realistic, but one of the options I suggested was Mats Wiefer, the final defensive midfielder. It'd be really interesting to see if Tottenham were to look at him, because surely they have, taken a look at him when reviewing Santiago Jimenez. And so, Santiago Jimenez for me, the question mark, I think the player's brilliant. I've been talking about him all season. I'd love to see him at Tottenham. However, you have to acknowledge the fact that Dutch football, Dutch league, Dutch standards, the big question mark is how does he transition? Also, Jimenez hasn't been spectacular in the second half of this season. He started the season on fire like he finished last season, but his form has dropped a little bit. His numbers are kind of off the top, and so maybe it's too early for him to make that move across. But as I say, rumours are that Tottenham are still looking, and he's on the list. And he should be on the list because he's a really talented, well-rounded player. And then the last two sort of stories for you guys are both, I guess, interesting, and one of them I've kind of forgotten all about. Edmond Tapsoba, the incredible centre-back that we were linked with last summer. I was all about this guy. I wanted to see him at Tottenham. We ended up going for Micky Van De Ven instead. Obviously, Van De Ven's been an absolute superstar, so no concerns or complaints. But according to Fabrizio Romano, several clubs sent scouts to watch Edmond Tapsoba over the last few games for Bayer Leverkusen, and there's movement around him potentially looking for a transfer in the summer if Xabi Alonso was to vacate and depart Bayer Leverkusen and move on to somewhere else. Time will tell on that, but the story suggested, or Fabrizio Romano said, that Tottenham obviously were looking in the summer, and it remains to be seen. There's a possibility whether or not we will go back in for him. I'd be incredibly surprised if Tottenham were to be a part of that scouting thing. I think that kind of ship has sailed. If Tottenham are looking for, a fourth centre-back, then it's not going to be of that standard, in my opinion. It's going to be one of those kind of the rotation type players, the Lloyd Kellys, or someone like a Tosin Adarabioyo, and I'd be absolutely fine with Tosin. Concerns around the fact that he's a right-footed, right-sided player, although we know that Ange doesn't really seem to care about sides. He thinks if you're a centre-back, you're a centre-back, and it shouldn't matter too much. So I'd be very, very surprised to see Tottenham, and also disappointed. I don't think we need to be looking at that level for centre-backs anymore. I think we're good, even though obviously we're conceding too many goals, 49 goals already this season. If we're going to make any sort of improvements in the league position next year, we need to find a way to have a goal difference swing, in my opinion, of around 25 to 30 goals. I think we need to score more than we are, and I think we need to concede a lot less. And I don't really see us improving our centre-back options or our full-back options in the first team level. So tactically, there have to be some adjustments, or if there's not, then we're just going to have to hope that a defensive midfielder comes in, or that the midfield adapts in their ability to win one-on-one battles, and that there's less mistakes at the top end of the pitch in transition, less sort of dispossessions where we get hurt. We can see most of our goals from mistakes rather than being outplayed, and so we need to figure out those mistakes, and hopefully improvements in the front line will also help in that regard, and they should be considerations. You know, how good are players at the top end of the pitch that we're looking at? How good are they at keeping hold of the ball? How good are they at offensive duels? How good are they at retaining possession and obviously converting their chances? And the last story, guys, that's just kind of on the loop-de-loop, so I'll keep it very brief, is Gio Lo Celso is apparently in talks with Real Betis to leave the club in the summer. He's frustrated with his lack of game time. Obviously, the player hasn't really had, a long stint in the team for a number of reasons. Injuries. He's not fancied above James Maddison, despite James Maddison's form, and I don't really see that changing between now and the last 6 games. And so it would be kind of entirely plausible to see him move on back to Real Betis in the summer, and hopefully Tottenham can get some money for him. But you don't expect it to be a lot, do you? Sort of 8 to 10 million maybe, not much more than that. And Betis would get a really good player for that sort of price. If he can stay fit, then he really is a talent on his day. But I think you'd have to call his time at Tottenham, a disappointment at best, or a flop, at worst, because for a number of reasons, personality, fitness and form, he hasn't been good enough over the time that he's been employed by Tottenham. So that's likely to be the end of that. Lots of work to do, guys. So much work to do this summer. Players coming in, players coming back from loan. Need to work on our homegrown. Need to improve at the top end. Need to improve in the middle of the park. And, hopefully we'll still have enough juice in our squeeze this season to get top 4, although it's looking unlikely. Aston Villa 6 points ahead with 2 games played more. Those 2 games at the moment are Arsenal and Chelsea. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. We'll talk about Arsenal tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts on the topics we've discussed. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. And as always, bye-bye.